It was Chelmsford County First School in the decade of denim and daft punk that I found myself on the sidelines of the playground waiting for an invitation to play. The invitations rarely came, and when they did, extracting myself from the comfort of my brick wall was excruciating, to say the least. I felt I didn't belong. I was interfering in their relationships. I was the spare part to complete their game. I was a serious case of imposter syndrome, and it was reinforced by a teacher who reassured me that it's okay that I'm not a leader, because I'm a helper and they're just as important. So most of my life I stayed quiet. I worked away in the background and I stepped in only when asked. I helped. My early jobs fit this mould nicely, a cog in the corporate machine. I had my role. I served my function without pause or argument, and I simply got the job done. However, as I've grown, I've noticed and taken on more responsibilities. I realised the importance of showing up, stepping up and being present. I realised I'm just as accountable as my colleagues, I'm just as accountable as my classmates, and I'm just as accountable as other Australians. The following interview is going to go through my processes of adaptive leadership and reflect on ways I can improve. Thank you. To me, adaptive leadership is in the name itself. Adapting to situations by acknowledging the environment, taking an outside-looking-in approach, or to use the coarse jargon, looking down from the balcony, understanding the motivations of each stakeholder and actively listening to the concerns of each. So in the spring of 2018, I found myself on the end of semester dance floor. The beat of research proposals, social media strategies, and writing assignments joined the chorus of not one, but two end-of-term intensives, which included the much-feared group assignment. My glasses mirrored the rose gold shade of my open MacBook when my mind mirrored the multiple windows and tabs open on my MacBook. In my mind, the first step was to take leave from my day job and give myself a chance to breathe, from the sunny perspective of my suburban balcony. I took a moment and organised the multiple tabs per project, including the open conversations with fellow academics. We were all on the same dance floor and mutually panicked in having to coordinate research and producing a case study. We acknowledged our environment and from the balcony decided an online environment was most suitable. Thank you to WhatsApp, Google and YouTube. We remained in constant communication, making each other aware of our availability and providing progress updates on our research. We also valued the importance of finishing our coursework, although our prioritisation may have been just a little different. Due to our varying loyalties, part of the group were happy to wait to the last minute, where others wanted to just knock it out of the park and get on with their other assignments. However, our losses were equalised. We would receive the same result for the end product, so we were equally invested in producing something worthy. By working together and adapting our busy schedules, we were able to coordinate to the end result. I am but a soldier on the front line of corporate Australia. Reflecting on incidents I've catalogued in my mind, I can appreciate the extent in which I am distracted by red tape, the bureaucracy, the inability to communicate with certain personalities, the fear of asking the right questions, but probably more importantly, hearing the answers to those questions. They may not go in my favour. The concern I've had while studying leadership is the realisation that so many situations that have gone wrong could have gone better with the implementation of adaptive leadership. And the question I find myself asking is, how can I demonstrate adaptive leadership without stepping on toes or putting anyone out of place? For example, now when something occurs at work or even at home, I stop, think and question. What's the problem? How have I contributed towards the problem? And what is within my capacity to resolve the problem? I think the qualities of adaptive leadership is to harvest the stories from your stakeholders. Knowing their story knows who they are, where they're coming from. You can exercise empathy and humility. You can ask questions to show your understanding. And you can demonstrate accountability. I think that was the strongest takeaway from this course, was accountability and stepping up. I think Mahatma Gandhi is a great example of an adaptive leader. He led India through its civil rights movement by setting an example. He changed his way of living and reacting to the British rule, inspiring countless others to do the same. He lived by the notion, be the change. Another example can be found in Ernesto Cerullo's TED Talk, where he talks about the importance of listening. He tells a story of want to help someone, shut up and listen. In his story, he describes how he arrived at the Zambian river and taught the locals how to grow Italian tomatoes and zucchinis, but the locals were not interested and the Italians could not understand why. The agriculture grew beautifully and boasted to the Zambians how great it could be. But when disaster happened, the hippos marched from the river and destroyed all the produce. The Italians turned to the Zambians and said, look what happened here." The Zambians replied, "Yes, this is why we don't do agriculture here." The Italians, exasperated, said, "Why didn't you tell us?" And the Zambians replied, "You never asked." Acknowledging the environment of the situation and understanding the audience is the beginning of adaptive development. When deciphering the adaptive from the technical and reframing the story from different perspectives, it is enlightening to find the extent to which a challenge is more about your own attitudes and behaviours. I think it's from understanding the role you play and how your behaviour can shape others that true adaptation can occur. I think the concepts of leadership and storytelling is something that you can practice every day in almost every situation. Stories for sure is how we connect with each other. When producing the final piece, Self as Leader, there were 3 components I needed to assess first. Who is my audience? What is my goal? And what is the audience benefit? Through these guidelines, I was able to curate my story. The easy answer was duty, fulfill my course requirements, and lecture satisfaction that learning outcomes were met. But I think the more important answer is that my audience was with me and is for future viewers, as the goal was to demonstrate that I've learned something of adaptive leadership and storytelling over the last 2 weeks, and will be able to take those learnings into the professional environment. The audience, whoever they might be, can benefit from my learnings and perhaps investigate further to their own. I think it's taught me that I need to be more open-minded and be more analytical of situations rather than just reacting. As you can probably tell from the presentation so far, my key thing about leadership is taking accountability and doing my bit. My greatest weakness has always been fear. The fear of being inauthentic, wrong, or looking stupid. Like the audience of Tim Brown's TED Talk, I hide behind nervous laughter, comedy, and say I'm sorry like it's going out of style. If you want an idea, try drawing the person next to you and showing it to them. Or walk into a crowd and take a selfie. Both exercises encapsulate the anxious embarrassment I feel in front of the camera. Which is why I chose to turn the camera on myself, so I could face my fears and take ownership of my thoughts. I think the concepts of leadership and storytelling is something that you can practice every day in almost every situation. Stories for sure is how we connect with each other. Practice, practice, practice. The simple answer is practice. When I'm confronted with a situation, either professionally or personally, rather than reacting, I'll be implementing the structural framework shown earlier in the presentation. Research will also play an important factor. I'm a fan of TED Talks around leadership, communicating, and storytelling, and I always find them the best teacher.